is like, I was impressed that you have like hundreds of complaints a year in one town, in one community.
Several.
Several hundreds.
And this is underestimate because disaffection, people are not signaling anymore.
And I will tell you, in Chile, in whole Chile, we have like 300 a year because of others. So the situation, if we try to get a legislation like Carlos said that they had, I don't know where in United States, probably wouldn't result in Chile anyway. We have like sometimes Chile can be a violent country. We have earthquakes, volcanoes, yeah.
And no other complaints.
No other complaints. They will solve it just like in another way, probably. Yeah. So when I was thinking on this presentation, I was thinking on the consortium members of our D-NOSES project. So this is really simple now, okay? But I still appreciate that there are lots of other experts here that don't want to walk around Milano, yeah, but try to.
And they're listening to us.
And they're listening to us. So the general assumption which does the VDI says when complaints are there, yeah, or when they are made, then it's time for the industry or for the administration to act actually. Okay. But I need to have some formal complaints. And I told you in Chile we did this analysis some years ago how many formal complaints went into the health administration. And there were some from like 2,000 potential industries, like 250 had complaints. And if I tell you we have some 300 complaints per year, you can calculate it's just one complaint in average on a plant. So what happens when you had really, I don't know the exact number, but it was not more than 15 complaints. Is this? Yeah, and that's when, yeah, in some months it went to this, and it ended in this. Okay?
Really, this is a real story?
This is a real story. This was 500 million dollars investment.
500?
Yeah, in a city of pigs. Yeah, they wanted to have 2 million pigs. When they had 600, it was 600,000. It was really enough. Yeah, and they had to shut down all in half a year. Well, first they had to get the workers out. This was like 1 week, 2 week battle on the street. The workers were flown out by helicopter. The pigs were starving, and afterwards they tried to get out the pigs during half a year, slaughter them, and then the plant was shut down. Okay.
Unbelievable.
So, and we have this like, yeah, we have earthquakes like every 10 years, and we have stories like this also every 5 years.
Problem, but when you have problem,
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. And the people there were talking, were talking to the mayor, and nothing happened. They thought they must burn a police car to get into national television, and then everybody was talking about it. So, okay. So what we should do, or what I always tell my clients, is that they must be good neighbors from the beginning. Yeah, talk to your neighbors, show what you're doing, and when you show this, the people maybe will understand and will have no fear. So when you are a good neighbor, you can invite them, welcome, we have like a barbecue, yeah, and yeah, give
with the pigs.
give them something. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very easy, yeah, and you can create some conscience. I think when we have a situation like this, you need no more electronic noses, no more measurement, nothing more. Yeah, it's nothing more to do. So, okay.
1%.
So what I try to present today was thinking on the D-NOSES project, where we try to engage citizens. And well, what we do have, like, I'm an engineer, so I like standards. We will stick to standards, and what we have is we have questionnaire standards. And I try to present this and finally show a case study. When we talk about standards, we often heard that Germans are good in standards. Yeah, we have the VDI, which is the German Technical or the German Engineering Association, and they published lots of standards, I guess in the 19s, yeah, lots of them. And if you go on the homepage and put in Odours, you will get like 50 or 100 standards. Yeah, they're all technical standards. But there are just some of them that deal with the people affected by the Odours. Yeah, and this is this is this one, the 3883. Has 4 parts, and these are really the only ones dealing with the people directly. So part 1 is assessing Odour annoyance with questionnaires in one single location. So you go there, ask them what is your perception on your annoyance or the Odour situation in the last year. Or you can do, this is part 2, repeated brief questioning for neighbors. I will present this later on, which is really simple. And then our part 3 and 4, which I won't talk about today. This is how to manage conflicts and how to process other complaints and give feedback. Yeah, this technical one says you have to give feedback. Okay. So the first one, these you can buy them. They're not so expensive, like 100, 200 euros. Part 1 is like a little bit more complex. Part 2 is really simple, 30 pages. I mean, there's not too much in it. And some of them also are adopted elsewhere. Yeah, for example, Colombia. In Colombia, they had their regulation also consists in complaints and management. Yeah, and in Chile too. In Chile we have no regulation, but we have some guidelines or some proposals made in the past. And we also said when there is a complaint, knowing that we have really few formal complaints. So we said when we have one formal complaint, and this turns out to be a reasonable formal complaint, then the industry must do something like invest in an Odour management plan. We'll have to investigate. This was a really simple proposal to tell them, yeah, you must do something. Okay. But they are translated into Spanish, and yeah, it's like in the last years, and we are using them a lot. So first part is this one-shot assessment. You have the contents here, and well, it's a technical norm. It deals a lot with quality assurance, how to set up the area you are inspecting. You need your surveying. You need also to have this, besides the survey area, you need like an area which is not affected, which you always have to survey to see differences in different areas, and so on. How to prepare data inclusively talks about how to prepare the people that ask the questions. Yeah, and this is like going like a little bit, and how to evaluate it. And this is like social science, which for us as engineers it's hard, but I feel good when I go to the field and I do these things myself and talk to people. And you shouldn't talk too much to people. The norm says you have to stick to your questionnaire. Yeah, not talking too much with the guys. First questionnaire, and then you can talk. Okay. Also, when we get in touch with the people, but we actually don't tell them what the project is about. Yeah, we don't tell them we are surveying on other issues. We are talking to them, we are doing some environmental investigation for not having any bias. Yeah, if they live in an Odour affected community, when you come to others, then they will know, probably, and say, you're coming because of this plant. Okay, but usually you wouldn't tell them. This kind of survey is really simple. Determining annoyance or measuring is assessed with scales like a thermometer scale, which is this one. Oops. Yeah, and afterwards with the second question, like with a verbal scale. Yeah, and if the persons don't respond in the same way, which could correlate, we say, well, this is not, they didn't respond well, they are somehow biased, this is not a valid response, and we don't take this questionnaire into account. And there you have on table 5, there are let's say, where the verbal scale and the thermometer scale should react. So if somebody tells me on a thermometer scale he's extremely annoyed with 10, but then says, well, I'm very annoyed, and he doesn't say to me extremely annoyed, this one will get out. And this is really hard criteria. So in that case, I always, the people that work for me, I tell them, well, in that case, you can ask them again. Are you very annoyed or are you extremely annoyed? So because we know, because it happened to us that we would have to take lots of questionnaires out of the evaluation. So the standard gives us a sample questionnaire, which has like 4 parts. The first part, which we always do, is like the core questionnaire. It's about 20 questions, 25 maybe. But there are others too that are supplementary, that ask about health issues, or how people cope with other problems, if they have to go inside, or if they have to close the windows and so on. And general environmental worries. Okay? Within the questionnaire, we do a parallel assessment of noise and odors, which both are environmental stressors. Yeah? Noise also could stress myself as odors could do, like in a similar way, let's say. And just to have a look at if the environmental conditions where the people are living, if there's some other influences that maybe not just be odors, okay? If it's like a general environmental situation that concerns them. And also, which is like maybe very German, yeah, data must be treated confidentially. Inclusively, the second part of the norm says, data which you not need, which is like personal data, should be destroyed. So when we do this, our client never receives which people we asked. He maybe would see, because in rural areas it's like easy to figure out something, but we won't give them. So when the questionnaire is really simple, like 20 questions. First we ask on housing conditions, the time that they're living in the house or in the sector, if it's their own house or if it's for rent, if they are used to use the gardens or work outside, etc. The next one is really complicated in Chile. How many hours per day are they staying at home or not in their home? Because they would assume that you want to rob them. To get inside their house and steal something. This is not. We have to do this at the beginning. It's really hard because sometimes then say, okay, yeah, just find your way. And disturbing other environmental factors. Then we do the questions on noise. Afterwards, the question on odors, and finally, some demographic question on ages, how many people are living in the homes, etc., and the educational level, which also sometimes is quite embarrassing. So on noise and odors, we ask like 5-6 questions. Just how strong do you perceive the odors in your house? Yeah. Then comes this thermometer scale, yeah, where they say, okay, this is like, I feel it's like, in the last year it was like 7. If this annoyance is acceptable or not, just yes, no, which is quite difficult sometimes because they start talking to you and you must say yes or no. Yeah. And then the opinion on what is the source, which is sometimes sounds to be quite simple, sometimes it's not. And then they must describe the most annoying odor with their own words. Sometimes they say, I can't tell this. I said, well, just tell me. And they say, okay, it feels like shit. And last, the verbal scale, yeah, which is important then for us to look if the verbal scale coincides with the thermometer scale. But actually it's the same. It should be the same. Then, when we're thinking about how to get on the data, we can do this as interviews, as written surveys on the phone, or web-based surveys, or other techniques probably. So they have some advantages, disadvantages. Usually, for myself, we first always start with a personal interview. So they know us, they know what we are doing. We want to come back like maybe after a year, after 2 years, after 3 years. So this works out quite well. On the first hand, we will do interviews, and then probably we'll go on telephone surveys. But clearly, response rates, if you try to do written surveys, we never get any feedback. If you leave the questionnaire at their homes, they will never send it back to you. Even not taking a photo with WhatsApp, it's impossible. They won't do it. Probably they don't know how to fill it in, so it's like easier if someone asks the question, but you have to stick to the question, can't explain too much. Yeah, everybody will get the same question and has to answer the same question. So in an interview, we have good response rates. We fill out all the questionnaires. There could be a bias with the interviewer, how to formulate the question if you start talking to the people. This is how we do it on the first time, and then we go to the phone surveys. Just that it's also saving money, of course. Yeah. Okay. Then the second part, which is also from the 90s, which is just repeated brief questionings, which comes like closer to what we are trying probably with D-NOSES. Yeah. This is from the 1990s, but it still was reassured 2015 to be still the valid standard. And this is like, okay. The scope is you're looking for local residents, and they do have to do measurements with their nose in repeated occasions. Yeah. To measure the frequency of momentary degrees of annoyance. So the advantage at that time is to get a collection of data on a rather large number of individual events. This is stated like this in the standard. I mean, today when we think about D-NOSES, they thought this is big data in the 1990s. For us, it's like probably nothing. Yeah, we want to have much more data than just one person sniffing once a day. I mean, once a day, always in the same time, 4 o'clock, you go outside, sniff, and then, okay, it smelled or not. I mean, it's probably nothing. The panel members are questioned on regular and simultaneously, or say all the neighbors would step out at the same time, hopefully. Yeah, allowing checks for plausibility also, which is good. And yeah, I mean, what I told you, they say personal related data merely to assure representativeness and then throw it out. When we work with D-NOSES or on digital, once we have it like digitally, I think what once is in the cloud never will be thrown away. So we will have to deal with this like what we do with the data. The order test is on a fixed time on the day, should not be changed. And it can be like in a short term, 2 or 3 months, when you should do this on a daily basis, or when it's for like a year or so, then it should be at least at a weekly basis. So the data you collect is not that much. And this is it, yeah. The standard says you will get a postcard and you should send the postcard back. In Chile, we don't use postcards anymore. I lived there 15 years, I never sent any postcards, so forget about this. Okay. Just to finish with the case study, I hope there are some people from Chile here, I hope you will not identify it's hard to identify. So on the photo you won't identify which kind of industry or facility it is. But it's operating since 2006 with several modifications which require environmental license. It's set it up in a rural area nearby, we'll have a map afterwards. They actually now have three scrubbers and 3 biofilters. The environmental license demands other surveys, and other stressors or facilities are not around. These are the only ones most of the time. And yes, what we are doing are field inspections and questionnaires. So the site is here, located here. We have really close by, like 25 meters, neighbors. I must say this one is largely, it's one family group. They're like 25 people. Over here, just a few houses. It's a little bit more over there. and the city is like here. But when you have to look, this is the wind direction where the wind comes from. Principally it blows straight to the city. Okay. So we think that in this first circle, like 100 people, and in the next one, like 800 people, we have phone numbers of every house. Okay. And we'll do the questionnaire hopefully in every house. They did a dispersion modeling in 2013, and they said, well, this could be, but just a little bit be annoyed, very little, and here is nothing. Yeah, in this circle, really nothing. The panels we are still, this is ongoing. We started last year, and the questionnaires also. We had this large questionnaire, but we did it like every 6 months or so. Yeah. So what are the results for the zone A, which is the highly affected zone? I also, well, let's look about the people we are talking to. Yeah, important maybe for D-NOSES also. On average, I guess we have an average about 50 to 60 years. Usually elderly women that are staying at their home. This is when we come like on the day or on the weekend, and they will ask us. So this could be people probably that all of them have a cell phone, but it's not probably not a smartphone, and they will not they are not used to like doing tipping on an app and sending us some information, and which some of them are really living for lots of time there. I separated here this A zone because this is the highly affected zone, and there are people that moved in just like 6 years ago, okay, and they were not there when this facility was started up and where the heavy other problems were. Okay. Okay. Educational level is low. Yeah. So what are the results? Dispersion modeling, I can't show you anything because there was nothing. They said there was no impact at all. They modeled 5 other units with and looking for the percentiles. So it was 0 impact here, here, here. There was just an impact really, really close. But if you look at it, it was maybe 1.5 other units with percentile 95. So it was really, really low. Yeah. When we go with our trained field inspections, actually we have no perceptions here and here. Sometimes here, but like just 6% of the time, which should be okay for the Germans standard. And here it's between like 14 is here and 3 is like here because of the wind. Yeah. But when you ask them with the questionnaire, they're extremely annoyed, or they're really annoyed. And if you ask them, for example, here in the B, which we never mentioned anything with our field inspectors, they will say that they are really, really highly annoyed. Yeah, these guys are extremely annoyed. But then, when you look at the people that lived there for like 30 years, these are the extremely annoyed people. And when you ask the people that lived there, it's just very few, so statistically probably not relevant. But they lived there for 5 years, where supposedly all the plant got the scrubbers and so on, and tried to treat the others. They are not so annoyed as the people that lived there for a longer time. So what we think, what could happen when you ask the neighbors directly, that we have highly annoyed people, even if we can't model it. We do our field inspection, we don't perceive it, but they are still annoyed. And so for the operator, he invests in scrubbers and biofilters, but the people are still annoyed. So the environmental authority would say, well, you're still, there's nothing, it's still always the same. Okay? So probably we think that there's a general worry about the plant itself. It's not only just about odors. Maybe they think it's dust. It could be anything else, which we might even not know. And also probably they have like this memory. Yeah, they were impacted on a really hard way, like 10 years ago, for years. And if you just ask them on odors, they will think of it and say, okay, it's smelly, even if they don't smell at all. So probably the challenge for us would be, when we think about the memory effect for D-NOSES could be some also thinking of selling arguments for the operator, could say, well, look, if the people now must measure it, and they can't measure it because there is no such impact, at least in the zones that are like a kilometer away, so you can be on the safe side. This could also help for the people living there, say, well, probably it's another issue, but not necessarily the other issue. So we can calm down and look what the issues are. It's the street, it's the dust, it's the noise, it's anything else, or something like simple things that you need. Okay, and clearly we can have an impact situation monitored 24/7. I mean, if we go with our field inspectors, we are there like 10 minutes, and the people would say, yeah, you're coming again, but you never come when it's smelly.
Yes, always happens.
So 10 minutes is like nothing 2 times a week, so yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gerhard. It was really very interesting. We are so late that I hope that the last speech will be very quick.
And is there another speech?
Yes, the last one. We have the last one by Carmen Bax, which is the other PhD student, which is very lucky to work with me and Selena. And she will talk briefly about